today we have a special guest, Michał, a PhD researcher at Utrecht University on consumer-related rebound effects of circular business models. Thank you so much for being here, Michał.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
So, without further ado, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes. So, well, my name is Michał. As you mentioned, I'm doing PhD at Utrecht University in the Netherlands, and I specifically look at consumer behavior in circular economy and like the rebound effects. So these sort of unexpected negative consequences of circular business models. And in terms of my background, for my bachelor's, I did actually aerospace engineering. So it was quite a long journey to be where I am now. And for my master's, I did sustainable business and innovation. So I tried to shift away from the aerospace industry to sustainability.
So, can you explain what is circular economy and why it is essential today?
Yes. So, circular economy is quite, I would say, in some way contested, paradigm, because there are like different visions of what it is. But in essence, it's really about, closing the loops of materials and resources, with the aim of, reducing materials throughput, right? So, like our current economy, it's quite often referred to as linear. So, like you take a material, you make something with it, and then you throw it away. So this kind of has a lot of problems, but like the main problem is first, like you basically use up all the materials that are there, right? So like there might be not enough materials for the future generations, and there's also a lot of waste. So the idea of circularity is that you basically redesign your products and also the way you use them so that you can close the loop and use the materials for as long as possible to preserve their value and also minimize waste. So yeah, I think it is quite essential because we all sort of are, I think, at least in some way aware of the environmental issues with overproduction, overconsumption, waste. And I think it has a lot of potential to change our relationship with resources. So on the big level, it's quite easy to understand. Like we just sort of close the loops. But of course, there are different sort of imaginaries of like what it should be. Should it be only focused on the materials? So like very technical sort of approaches, like really centered around technology. There are also more, I would say, holistic approaches. So we also have to change our society, like how we sort of, go about our life. So it's just not about sort of swapping what we use, but also really rethinking how we use items. But I would say like the dominant paradigm is very much focused on technology, that like technology, it will be essential part in achieving circularity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree. So, in a sense, when we say the economy as today, I mean every day, going to the supermarket or buying any stuff. So, from production to the supplier, and from supplier to their daily habits. So, implementing this a big concept, let's say, circular. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, it really requires changing the whole sort of value chain or like supply chains. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And also, in your recent publication, I liked this part specifically. So, just going to read it. Just stated that recent research suggests that the introduction of circular business models does not necessarily lead to more sustainable consumption. So, can you elaborate on this?
Yes. Well, the way well, me and my colleagues approached the topic was we try to challenge a bit like the dominant discourse or the beliefs about um, circularity, because quite often you hear that it's circular, therefore it's sustainable, and it just sounded a little too beautiful to be true.
Mhm.
Um, that's why we wanted to explore like real life um, cases of circular business models that were already implemented. With we also focus on consumer behavior to really go to this like micro level of well, you could say like the sort of forefront of circularity, right? Because these were like the very, I would say, like first trials with those new business models, and to see how well how consumers engage with it. And what we found was that indeed there was in some way you did have you could see those behaviors that were sort of aligning um, with expectations that circular business models. So maybe I can like name a few examples also to make it a bit more concrete. So this could be, for example, sort of more access-based consumption. So, for example, you would instead of owning a laundry machine at home, you would use a shared laundromat. So there's also a lot of well overlaps with sharing economy. Um, this could be also like reusing items, so like very classic, almost I would say very old circular business model, which is like secondhand clothing, or like any other items that had an owner, but they are still usable, and you can just someone else can still use it. Um, so yeah, indeed, we saw that for some business models, it really this environmental promise was delivered, and consumer behavior was basically aligning with those expectations. But for some business models, we saw that it wasn't really the case. That actually the way consumers behaved or like engaged with the business model, and I don't want to blame consumers, right? But like looking at sort of the face of things, um, yeah, for some consumers, like it was sort of a gateway to consuming even more. So we had sort of this, balancing of, well, some consumers, uh, well, consume more sustainably, some less. So you had sort of this offsetting of, the benefits and, well, the costs, let's say. Um, yeah, so it really was, yeah, it wasn't that simple as we might believe.
Yeah, I guess that's also a crucial point because I'm not aware if we have a third party that controls, and we also need to regulate the production systems of, um, because these suppliers, I mean, it's a business model in a sense. For them, making the profit is always good. Meanwhile, when it comes to the concept, I mean, they are selling the concept, but they are not really committed to the concept per se. I mean,
Um, I would say that's maybe part of the story. But yeah, I'm a bit careful with um like I don't think there is a certain, you cannot say, oh well, like the suppliers are bad or the consumers are bad, or like it's very difficult because it is quite a complex system of like how we produce things, how things are consumed. Um and quite often we could see that um yeah, there were business models that were, or like companies that were running those business models that were very committed to um delivering this yeah, environmental benefits through their business model, but they were also they had to operate on the market, right? So also compete with sort of conventional linear businesses.
mhm.
And I think one of the cases that I thought was very interesting was another laundry example. Um, but that model was a bit different, because there you would basically have a company that was retaining the ownership of the laundry machine, and they just put it at your home. So it really feels like almost like, sort of the old way, or like the traditional way that you just have it at home. But of course, because they remained the owners, they had they had higher stakes at making sure that this machine will last as long as possible versus, just selling it for you, letting it break, and like hoping you come back for next one in a few years.
Mhm.
And also the way they'll deal with that to make money. They said, well, we just put it at your home. You pay for every time you run the laundry, and also the prices were sort of encouraging you to um, to use, like, let's say, lower temperature, right? So like 30 degrees was cheaper than 90. So then you would think twice. So I really have to you wash this at that temperature. But what they realized after a few months was that people started to really become very not say stingy, but very careful with washing, right? Because every time you would run, like you saw, okay, like this costs whatever, €2. This costs like €1.
Yeah, exactly.
So the company also got issues with the cash flows, because like they couldn't really predict how much money will come in to sort of keep the company afloat. So yeah, there's also that part. Like even if the idea is great, well, the real life sort of challenges, like how um, consumers would change. So sometimes maybe you are too good to be financially viable.
Yeah, I think this is also in you brought up very interesting case because when you mentioned the laundry, I'm going to admit and completely agree that you cannot blame either only the business, the owners or the consumers, because as a consumer, I'm extremely corrupt with the comfortability of daily life. And of course, it's easy to discuss about circular economy, but when it comes to our own habits, I guess sometimes I actually, yeah, there are lots of things that actually I could have done in a more sustainable way. And I guess in this sense that we have to step by step teach ourselves and try to also give up some of the comforts in our lives, perhaps that become too much of a taken for granted for some generations, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's definitely some sense of like you might be giving things up. Um, but I think we should try to create more positive narrative around it, because like I think people are generally a bit reluctant to be losing things. Um, and of course, um, if you choose, I would say, if you really like are committed to circularity and like do circular behaviors, it makes it makes you feel good. But of course, if someone is not very sold with this idea, like it will be a bit more um a bit more tricky. Um, but I also think we don't need sort of one or three or whatever 1,000 people who are like perfectly circular. I think we need everyone to do something. Um, like the things that are easy for you, or like you feel like, yeah, this really makes sense for me. Um, because also when I look at myself, I would say like I'm not a perfectly circular person. I'm doing my best,
Hmm.
but it's also about like what aspects of circularity really appeal to you. Because this could be, for example, also choosing for products that have like a long lifetime, so like quality products. So for example, I don't really do like secondhand clothes, um, because like you don't really know like where they are coming from, like what shop made them or sold them. So actually then I go more for like new items that are like, if possible, like with like organic materials, also made responsibly, and they're also a bit more expensive. But then I wear them till they really fall apart. So, sometimes my mom says like, "Oh, Michał, you look like homeless. Like you have to throw this away." But like, no, like it's still usable. Like it's worn out. Like, it doesn't look perfect, but like I know this material is still, covering me.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think like for me this is circular, and I think a lot of people, or not a lot, but like some people could also identify with that. And start there to like ask yourself, like, hey, do I really need this thing to be replaced, or can this still be used? Also, recently I needed to buy some chairs, and first I was like, okay, let's be circular. Let's like look at secondhand. But well, I didn't really find anything that I liked. But then I looked at, well, if I look at new chairs, like which ones could be used in a circular way, right? So then I went for, let's call them like modular chairs. That's there is the frame that is made of wood, very sturdy, and then like the sitting part was like you could detach it. It had some fabric, so if it gets worn out, because like fabrics are, like you sit on it a lot, you go up and down, and then you can easily just replace that little part and keep the chair, right? So you really also are in some way circular, because you slow the flow of materials. You only replace what really needs to be replaced. So, I think there's a lot of ways we can contribute to that. But of course, like, you have to think about it a bit before you build those habits. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do the same for the clothes. It's just you have two options. You can either go by the cheap available options, or you can pay a bit extra, but the lifetime of the product is longer.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I think the same. I have some of my clothes from high school. They are still good, and I still wear. I mean, they have better quality than the clothes today. But yeah, I think that's essential point. Especially, I think recently there has been several news outlets about the fast fashion.
Mhm.
Promotion of the fast fashion and how it's very destructive to the environment. But when it comes to circular economy as a whole concept, I think this is the time actually to really promote the concept, because I don't know how long it will last. But with the tariffs being imposed, perhaps, yeah,
Uh, yes,
it's a
that's
great time.
yeah, that's another issue that I think, especially when we look at the European circular economy policy. It is in some way. Well, I don't think they could anticipate the tariffs, but of course, once import or export gets, yeah, like has extra costs,
Mhm.
you really want to use what's already there.
Yeah.
And I think, like the European policy was very much focused on, okay, let's bring all the resources possible here and reuse them, right? So like, there's also like, yeah, quite debatable, like how how good this policy is for countries that are mostly providing resources, or like or exporting materials. But I think at the end, like the scarcity will in some way accelerate that process. But I don't think we should just get comfortable and wait till we run out of resources to say, oh, okay, let's think how we can make the best out of it. But yeah, I also think it is a bit of a mindset. Also, when I look at like my grandparents, for example, like I grew up in Poland. So like after the Second World War, it was part of the Soviet bloc. So well, then resources were really scarce,
Mhm.
and I could really see how my grandma was very circular before it even became, like a trendy or like this new framing of circularity. Like, of course, like she did those things that we think of them today as circular, but like you would not really use that word. But she would like repurpose every possible fabric, like from I don't know old T-shirts that were just bad to like make a little carpet or use it as a cloth,
Yeah.
or I don't know neighbors were changing windows, so she would build like a little greenhouse out of them. Uh, so we really had this mindset of, well, we have this resource here, let's use it if we can. So I think there is a lot of potential in all those little stories as well.
Yeah, this sounds actually quite interesting because a few days back, I was also discussing with one of my colleagues that yeah, it's a way actually that our old generation, like our grandparents or grandparents, in a way, if you look at their habits, it's quite sustainable. Yeah, they try to use everything in a more conscious and resource oriented way, that they want to make the best out of it, that and also they don't want to make waste. So I think there are lots of things that also it gives when we talk about the business models, perhaps at the end, I could also I wanted to also ask, like, maybe it would be again trendy, or as a young researchers we could make it trendy, the old habits of living the life, I guess, bringing and promoting it more in our universities. I think that that sounds actually quite an interesting idea. But yeah, okay. So we were discussing about uh, the system as a whole, but and we um, briefly touched upon the topic of the key challenges of implemented or being implemented circular business models. In so, is there any other points that you want to mention? What could be the main challenges on how to implement a business model in a sustainable manner?
Um, yeah, it is a difficult question. I was thinking a lot about that. Um, but when I was like looking at the case studies that we found in like for the recent paper, um, yeah, it really boiled down at the end to the whole economic system, because at the end it's like the issues we have are systemic. Um, so it's also very difficult for like single businesses to to have that much impact, because they still have to navigate within that system. So for example, in like in some business models we saw that um, basically circular consumption, instead of happening sort of substituting kind of conventional consumption, it was just like happening in addition to it. So just basically like you had more consumption than before. Um, and in some way, it kind of made sense, right? Because those new business models uh, had to be more attractive, or like the value proposition. So like, the product or service that you are offered had to be in some way better than what was already available in the market. But this also meant that, um, like it was just very attractive to use it, right? So you sort of have, like some convenience or some like practicality that was part of the, of what the business was offering. And then you also had those social norms, especially I feel like, in the Western countries, which also surprisingly like most of the research is focused on. Um, the social norms are really about convenience, right? Like things have to be easy. You don't have to think about it. Like it just appears at your door, or you just do this, just do that. So they were also a little feeding into those, let's make things easy for you. But then I was asking myself, like, why do we need things to be so easy, right? But we also, of course, like have all the obligations, work, families. So that also makes sense, right? But they also cater to that system, and I think we should also think about, well, how can we build an economy where maybe we also have the time to do things that are more sustainable, right? Even like repairing your items, like that's also takes so much time. You have to find the place that repairs it. It's also expensive most of the time to repair because of the labor costs. And just buying something new is way cheaper, and you get it delivered. Um, so again, maybe then I'm gonna like move a bit to like the role of the government. But actually, when you look at sort of the structure of like how things are taxed, the labor, like the tax on our salaries or like on labor is really high, but on materials is very low. Um, so this sort of promotes, using more materials and not so much labor because it's expensive. But like, what if we flip it? Like, what if materials become more expensive and labor becomes a bit cheaper or like taxed a bit less? Because I'm not saying we should underpay people. Like, that's not the message. But like on the systemic level, there's this incentive. Uh, like just use what's the cheapest, but also what's the cheapest is also partially, designed by the policy. Um, and also, as I mentioned before, yeah, like for the businesses, it's also quite challenging because they have to compete. And the way they compete is by making products that are very fun to use. So you have a lot of, yeah, like on each end, like the businesses, consumers, or governments. Yeah, like everyone has to like get a bit, yeah, make a bit their parts to make, yeah, make circular products or like circular businesses also sustainable. But I think in this approach, we should really sort of merge together the sustainability principles with circularity to also think along. Well, like circularity, I think, is a tool towards sustainability, but it's not necessarily gonna make everything sustainable because it's circular. So like you really have to, yeah, get with this mindset of, well, it's circular. Okay, like it could work, but what are the uh, kind of principles of sustainability behind it?
Also, yeah, I think you outlined actually very nicely the business models, but now if we shift to the consumers engagement, so what at the moment I can feel a peer pressure, or you can say a social pressure especially in environmental sciences. We have, I guess, high demand for products that are sustainable because we are the scientists, or we are the people who are actually studying this sustainability and promoting this sustainable way of making things. But in general, what do you think? What drives consumer engagement with circular business models, according to the findings in your recent publication? And also, actually, just wanted to mention your publication. That's also how we got in touch with you. I read your publication, so I found it very interesting. So yeah, I think it's very nice to share also with the audience.
Yes, yeah, thank you so much. It's also very reassuring to know that someone reads that, because of course you don't know who will read that. So yeah, thank you. Every read is yeah, makes it makes it feel like it's worth to keep going. And yeah, getting to the question, yeah, so um, what what I would say, like very on a high level, I already mentioned, like the practicality or convenience. So that was sort of the driver. Um, that was really like the main reason to attract consumers. Um, so, well, in a way, it has sort of two sides. I think the positive side is that it shows that circularity can be attractive. But also this was quite often linked with rebound effects, so like more consumption because of that practicality or convenience. But we also saw that the environmental awareness, or like the pro-environmental values that people had, were also part of the drivers, maybe coming a bit less frequently. Um, so I feel like it is a bit of a barrier to mainstreaming circularity. Um, so I think, yeah, there is sort of a need for yeah, I don't really know how to do this, I have to say. But ideally, like, you want circular business models to be attractive, convenient. But at the same time, um, there is, I would say, a need for some sort of like moderation or like sufficiency mindset, that we ask ourselves, okay, do I really need this, or can I go without it? Um, because just because it's circular isn't good. So you have to also ask yourself, do I really need this product? Because ultimately, both, I think, from like a circularity perspective and sustainability perspective, the most, yes, circular, the highest sort of R on the ladder of R. So like, like the recycle, reuse, repair, remanufacture. There's a lot, but there's like a ladder of like which strategies are the most effective. The sort of R0 is refuse. So like, first, to be circular, just like think again, like, do I really want to, like, do I really need this thing, or refuse consuming if you don't really need that stuff? And from the sustainability perspective, the best impacts are those impacts that never happened, right? So again, it links to the refuse strategy. So like, the most green product is the one you never make. But of course, that's a little, I would say, radical, because you cannot say, okay, we just don't make anything anymore and live in this, paradise of like birds chirping and green trees. Because of course, like, that's not really, I would say, in line with like modern societies. Um, but I would say, like, yeah, it's really about, okay, do we need this? Yes or no? And I think that's already like a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I guess at the given timing of actually our endangered our future, um because of the climate change and all the consequences that are waiting us in further future. Of course, I guess we have to be, yes, as you said, we cannot criticize too much, because we may lose the interest of the market. People will not be that much attracted to consume in a more sustainable way. But at the same time, I guess there has to be a little bit of a pressure to commit really to these goals and ways of living. And also, as an individual, I think that what we can best do is, as you said, we also gave examples like clothing. That's perfect example. That's very much true. I can even show, actually, I have some clothes from high school, still in very good quality. And I guess that's in a way of being honest with ourselves and trying to adapt more sustainable habits as well in our lifestyle. And I guess that would also perhaps, in a way, in a small way, contribute in our workplace, provide some peer pressure to others to adopt the same habits, perhaps. But okay, in general, how can suppliers and consumers each, and what can they do to do more of sustainable production and push towards a circular economy?
Yes, I think for suppliers, if there's anyone listening, I think to I think the key is really at the stage where you develop your business model. And I think the key, like the one thing that I think everyone should try, uh, and I hope some of them are already doing it, is to really engage with your potential consumers already at the design stage of your business model. To have this, proof of concept. So really like have this user-centric design. So this way, of course, you can develop a product that really addresses the need. But you can also understand maybe like the different ways that consumers will engage with your product or service that you maybe did not anticipate. That then like basically sort of offset the benefits that you were hoping for, and maybe adjust the design in a way that would sort of prevent those behaviors. So I think the laundry at home was, I think, a very good example of, well, I'm not sure if they really have done that user sort of testing, but like their intervention was really good. But of course, I don't think they really anticipated that people would wash so little. So I think if you have consumers involved from the very beginning, you can understand a bit better, how they would use your product and also what they really need, and how you can create, something that addresses their need without also like making them feel that you're really dictating how they should behave. And I think for consumers, just ask yourself twice what we discussed in the previous question. Do I really need that? And I think also we should also have a message for the government or like the regulators, because of course, companies don't know everything. Consumers don't know everything. Is also a bit, I would say, not very realistic to expect every person, to read about, the impacts of everything they buy. So I think they should also sort of implement some maybe minimum regulation on, basically, I don't know, looking at, like the impacts of your products, right? To like, so give this responsibility to the producers, to see how their products sort of perform environmentally, like within their business model, and maybe compare with like the mainstream, like kind of current markets. Well, to see, okay, is my business model really better? Like, can I really claim it? Right. So this way, you can also avoid kind of being blamed for greenwashing. Another idea could be, as I mentioned, like those taxes. So try to shift tax more to materials, so to incentivize companies to use less. And also something that worked really well with the electronic industry was this extended producer responsibility. So basically, like if the product is at the end of life, like it goes back to the producer and doesn't get landfill directly. So like this also helps, I would say, incentivize producers or suppliers to also design products in a way that it's also easy to like take it back, maybe like refurbish it, and sell again or rent, or but like basically they will have much more ownership of the product than they have now. So I think this will also help push circular economy ahead and also make it more sustainable.
Yeah, I think also completely agree. Also, in one of the cases, when we really, I think the whole system, or there was a sign, if there would be a sign, there was a sign that when, of course, it's a bad example, but still, Russia-Ukraine war started, then I guess that was a sign that it's a time to maintain our own resource and to consume in a more sustainable way, because especially when there was a price increase, I guess, happened actually in winter. I'm not sure about in Netherlands, but in Belgium, the electricity gas prices went up, but we as an individual had to maintain our consumption in that manner because there was, of course, a big intensive and pressure towards us. We have a budget limitation and etc. So I guess also it shows that how fragile, in a sense that if there is any threat to our global chain, then actually countries or continents should be able to still produce their own products. But of course, there are also scarce elements that actually takes thousands of years to recycle and to be built. So, and in that sense, we have to be careful and try to as you said, like we can deliver it back to the manufacturers that they can reuse it, and also there, I guess, we have to make sure that these manufacturers, they are really committed to their sustainability aim goals, deliverables, so that they are really using extracting some of the materials, reusing them. But of course, if they are actually spending some time, should be should be done in this. Of course, you mentioned from the supplier's point and from consumer's point, very nice overview. But I guess now we came down to the researchers. So where can the researchers contribute?
Yeah, so I would maybe take the perspective of circularity research. I think the best way for researchers to contribute, I mean, also depends on where we draw, like what the role of researchers is. Because like some of my colleagues are a bit more, I would say like engaged scientists, so really getting out of their sort of office, like engaging with society. I would say I'm a bit more on the, okay, I'm in the office, that would say like the traditional, how to say, yeah, approach to science, to doing science. But I think, yeah, we should all try to get out a bit out. We should try to get out of our offices and, engage with people. Also do something yourself a bit in your private life. So yeah, like become a bit maybe more of an advocate of circularity that is also sustainable. And if I think about like really research activities, yeah, do not forget that circular is not always sustainable. So try to bring this perspective, to your research, and also do not think only about the environmental impacts, but also the social impacts, right? Because if you talk about rebound effects and like more consumption, if we talk, I don't know, about like electronics, if a secondhand allows someone to buy a new phone or to have a phone if they could not afford one before, it's a great social impact, like it's positive impact. But of course, if you look at the environmental perspective, like it doesn't really save any resources because now they're using a phone they would not have before. But there's always a bit of a trade-off. So I think we should be aware of those trade-offs, and make a bit more of a nuance, advice or like discussion and implications of like what we find in our research.
Actually, I will also try to put it during the video. I really like the illustration that you showed on your LinkedIn, and actually that was one of the reasons that I immediately reached out to you, that I wanted to interview you. And also that the like brief outlining of the research findings. I guess that's somehow attention capturing, I would say, because usually we hear maybe I'm in a more researching in the area some parts of a circular implementation, hear always good news, and then it was nice to see that a fresh look at and very how to say, not objective view on the current ongoing system and how it could go in a wrong way. And like it's in advance outlining that okay, there could be some fallouts, and we have to be cautious on these points. And I would recommend, actually, listeners can also find the link to the paper on the description as well. And so thank you very much. Actually, it has been when I saw the first publication, of course, I immediately wrote you, reached out to you, and also I think you briefly mentioned that yes, I'm more of a scientist who's at the office. It's why I was laughing, because I the same with me. Most of the time I'm at the office, but I try to push into to be more interactive with the farmers as well. But I guess you are already doing something that of contributing to the society, because yeah, you published your work, and it's also, you're not being too much optimistic. Besides, you are being critical at this point. I guess that's, before concluding this episode, a very nice thank you for all your answering all the questions and bringing your insights and your experience into this episode. And I have some general questions, if you don't mind.
Yes, sure. Let's go ahead. And yeah, before, also thank you so much for reaching out.
It's perhaps a hard one. I'm just asking the same question from most of the guests, just because I need also some mental backup, let's say. So, how to deal with eco anxiety?
Mm. Yeah, I would say I was asking this question a lot to myself. And yeah, I do have it sometimes. Yeah, like eco climate anxiety, but it's all within the same category. Especially like when you sort of witness those extreme weather events, like it is a bit scary. Um, or like when, I don't know, it's just like another heat wave or like very strong wind that you were not really expecting, or a flood. So well, my I would say coping mechanism is I'm not sure if it's the best, but well, I try to live well, sustainably as sustainably as possible myself. Um, because of course, like it makes me feel like, okay, I'm not really part of the problem, right? But like I don't want to be, just like very happy with myself, like, oh, I'm so green. Um, but I think this really helps that you feel like you're doing something. And yeah, I think that's one part, like understanding, okay, do I do everything I can do for myself to, be somewhat helpful? Because I think it's also motivating that see that, you have some sort of small impact. So try to make it positive. Um, and I think a lot, like something that was bugging me a lot was that, I would get anxious about things I cannot influence. I don't know if there's like elections either in Poland or the Netherlands, and you see like this kind of climate change denial, parties being elected. Uh, yeah, of course, it's giving you some negative thoughts, but this is a bit outside of the sphere of influence. So of course, you have to, have a little moment to grieve, and allow yourself to have these little grievance moments. Um, but focus on, okay, things I can do myself, maybe with my colleagues, with others, but don't try to like ourselves alone. We cannot save the world, so we have to really work together. So also like finding some other people who also believe in the same thing. It's also very helpful to feel like we all have this eco anxiety, but you can also deal with it together.
Yeah, I completely agree. Finding like-minded people and doing also having a social engagement, and yeah, I guess when you're surrounded by like-minded people, you can also do a lot more per se. Yeah. So what eh, what would be your main advice to your younger self first,
Mhm.
then any advice for incoming PhDs?
Okay. So I'm gonna answer this assuming that my supervisors might listen to that. No, but on a serious note, I think the what I wish I had known before starting was like you will be rewriting what you wrote a lot. You will be challenged a lot on everything you do. And yeah, that was more difficult than I thought it would be. Because I don't really like being challenged, and of course in academia that's part of the process, and I think it also makes your research better. But I'd be like, be ready for that, and it can be demotivating. So one thing, like it will be difficult to redo, the fifth time what you were doing. Um, the second thing is always remind yourself, why are you doing this? If you are doubting whether you want to continue, because you always, well, not always, at some point you will doubt yourself. So remind yourself, okay, what really drives me? So also the topic is important. And yeah, don't get too much into it. There's also like life after or outside of PhD. So make time for your hobbies, make time for your sports, for your friends, and just let yourself be a little imperfect.
Yeah, completely agree. You should have healthy habits. Try to promote most of the time healthy habits. Besides, having some habits is very essential, I guess, during your PhD, because during stress times you will be always challenged, as you said. So having something that will relax your brain a little bit, I guess, kind of essential.
Yeah, exactly. And just really, like protecting your sort of productive capabilities, because oftentimes you just think very intensely about something.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, but I was only busy for 4 hours, right? But I should do 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
But if you're fried, just go home, like I'm also gonna go home after this. Because it's the end of the day, and I'm like, well, I already did a lot of good things today. So I can call it a day, take a proper rest, and get started fresh tomorrow. So
yeah, I can do maybe quite much more in one day than the remaining days with very little energy. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's a good advice. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, and I will provide all the research papers as well. And if you could tell our audience where they can find you as well.
So yeah, LinkedIn. I don't post too much on there. I should do more probably. But basically from like the LinkedIn page, you can find the recent papers or like whatever, something interesting that might be to share. So
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thanks.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.